Hello, everyone. Welcome once again to the Pop Culture Yearbook. I'm Captain Logan.
And I am the real Manos.
Hey, Manos, we just jumped back in our time machine once again, and what year are we heading back to?
Well, we've gone back to the psychedelic year 1983.
Is every year psychedelic to you? I mean, yeah. you always say that about the 70s, which is fair, but I mean, we're all the way into 1983, Manos.
Oh, well, the 80s, I don't know, I guess it's a tubular year.
Well, here are some of the groovy things that happened in 1983. Actually, not so much considering the first item. It was the highest unemployment since 1941, and is the highest unemployment we had until, right now. China reached 1 billion in population, which I think is still about where it's at now. It was the first time we got mobile phones, Manos, introduced by Motorola. That was the first that were, as big as your house.
Mm-hmm.
And Sally Ride was the first woman in space on the Challenger, which, of course, exploded 3 years later in 1986. The Internet was created, though not for commercial use, but that was the year that the Internet was created. And it was also the first year for Microsoft Word. Movies included Return of the Jedi, Tootsie, Flashdance, and National Lampoon's Vacation. Popular musicians that year were Phil Collins, The Police, Duran Duran, and Culture Club. And new TV that started that year were things like The A-Team, Fraggle Rock, and it was also when Wheel of Fortune got its current syndicated slot.
Oh, yeah. Because it was around for, years before then with Chuck Woolery.
Chuck Woolery, that's right.
Chuck Woolery and somebody else as the Vanna part.
But it was daytime, and it actually stayed daytime till 91. It was on twice for a while.
Mm-hmm. And actually, during the 70s, Price is Right was like that.
Yes.
Which had a half-hour version at night with somebody else as the host, actually.
Yeah, that's right. I think we talked about that when I did Price is Right.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Totally forgot. I need to time travel back there and watch that video.
Well, Manos, what have you chosen to discuss from 1983?
All right. Plain and simple, I wanted to do something comic booky. So I picked Daredevil issue 191 from Frank Miller.
You picked a single issue.
A single issue. And this is a particularly special issue because this is the last issue of Frank Miller's original run on Daredevil. And it is also special because at this point in the run, he started to not draw the book all by himself. He, of course, when he first joined the book, he was just the penciler with I think Roger McKenzie doing the writing, and then he eventually took over both the writing and the art on the book. In his first issue, I believe he introduced Elektra. And then Klaus Johnson jumped in and helped do the finishes. He would kind of do the breakdowns, and Jansen would do the finishes on the book. And for the last issue, 191, he did it all by himself. This was he was the writer penciler on the book, and I love it when a creator gets to write the last issue of their run. And Peter David had a really good last issue. And let's see, there's a couple of other creators. I never thought that Chris Claremont had a big enough finale when he was doing X-Men.
Oh, considering how long he was on the book.
Yeah, I know. I mean, he was on 11 years or something like that?
It might as well have been 20, dude.
Yeah, no kidding. And he basically reinvented that whole thing into the franchise it is now. So it's really good when a creator has a chance to give himself a send-off, and that's what...
That's a great point.
Miller does a fantastic job right here, because it's basically an epilogue of things that have been going on in Matt Murdock's life at this point. Now, of course, the Kingpin had come back, caused a whole bunch of different problems. Elektra came in and was killed off by Bullseye, and then... responding to that, he breaks every bone in Bullseye's body by dropping him off a few stories, actually. But not dying.
Well, you, I mean...
What's that?
I said, after everything that happened, isn't that exactly what you would want to happen to Bullseye?
I would think so. That would be an appropriate response. But, and then, of course, the storyline of Elektra's resurrection. But still she disappears on him, and it's still fairly mysterious. Now, there's a lot of talk about how Miller didn't want to bring back Elektra, actually. I don't know if you know how much about that, but
Didn't know that, huh?
Dead was dead to him, and she was really popular. So, even back then, we brought popular characters back from the dead, and he was sort of pressured to maybe bring her back. So that's the way he kind of did it.
That's so interesting because that's such a part of her character now, and she's that character that won't stay dead.
Yeah, and so that's why he kind of left it kind of ambiguous. And actually, when he did the graphic novel, Elektra Lives Again, she dies at the end of that. And that was his point of making it over forever. Mm-hmm. But little did he know that Marvel would kind of push that out of continuity, which was easy for them because it was a graphic novel all by itself out of the series, and they never referenced it. So it was easy to make that change. She later would appear, I think, in Chick Chester's Fall from Grace in the 90s, and she's been with us pretty much ever since, actually. Mm-hmm. But this story focused on how the pressures have really affected him, and what he does is he visits Bullseye in the hospital, and he has a gun, and he's playing Russian roulette with a paralyzed Bullseye who cannot do anything. He can't move, he can't scream, he can't do anything but just sit there and watch him point the gun at his own head, click it, and then point the gun at Bullseye's head. And while he's doing this, he's explaining this incident that happened to him, where he was representing this man named Hank Jurgens, and he was being accused of several different crimes, and his son idolized Daredevil because he had seen him and Bullseye fight on TV. And turns out Jurgens was guilty of the things that he had been accused of. And the son actually catches Daredevil beating up his dad. And it has a terrible effect on him. And it leads to a school shooting, actually, by the young child. He takes his dad's gun and settles problems in school with a gun, and it's just heartbreaking to Matt Murdock as to what has happened to him here, and to see that maybe he had an effect. And it's like it's that classic Marvel story concept where, and actually you can probably attribute a lot of this to Stan Lee, because he really kind of cemented this in the Marvel kind of character, that a hero makes choices, and at the time it's probably a great choice, but it can lead to maybe things go wrong that you just have no control of, and so you feel like maybe I'm causing as much damage as I'm solving. And
yeah, and he always had that circular thing where Spider-Man kept creating his own villains, and
yeah, I mean Spider-Man's specifically is very, very central to this. But that's also kind of been through a lot of the other works as well, the other characters. And Daredevil is no stranger to this kind of situation, and Miller really does soak it up in how it affects him emotionally. And I'm looking back, and Frank Miller. This is when Frank Miller was doing sort of his cinematic approach to comic books, where like the first page is broken down. Let's see, like 9 pages, and the first 4 are panels that when you put together, it's his hand on the gun, and then the middle is this close up of him putting the gun to his head, and then the bottom 4 are him pulling the trigger, and that's how you open this book. And then we move on to just him clicking and then putting it towards Bullseye's head, and breaks down every moment in this scene. And
I mean, if that's not enough to keep you going, I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I love so much what Miller used to do, and he doesn't seem to do it as much anymore. I think he now these days embraces the jokey comic book aspects of the medium, which I wish he would go back to what he used to do. But you know what? If he's done with that, he's done with that, and I can't really make him. But he was so brilliant at it. And I think he was very influential on so many creators after that, because he trusted the art to tell the story. He trusted the visuals to tell the story. You know, I don't need, you know, the narrator going, well, he's holding this gun.
I can see it.
Yeah, like you see in so many older comics.
Yeah, that's
like,
right.
I see
from that very time period.
Yeah, and
I mean, heck, we were doing this all the way up through the 90s, really, or at least the mid-90s.
Yeah, you're right. And he was very influential. There were other creators, of course. But Miller really did bring this to the mainstream, this kind of storytelling. And he was one of the big writers who would let the characters narrate, if you did see narration boxes.
It just gives so much more validity to the medium. And doing it the other way, it's almost like, well, we just don't... The medium just can't speak for itself. It's got to feel either more like a movie, or it's got to feel more like a book. You know, you can't. Comic books can't just be comic books. And Frank was like, well, no, they can.
And then, yeah, he really did push. He really did push the envelope in all sorts of methods of storytelling. And this is still one of my favorite Daredevil comics of all time.
Oh yeah, sure.
And it's just such a simple story. I mean, nobody's coming back to life. No reality distortions are happening. It's just, you know, a painful moment between these characters, and you see how it affects even a bigger than life kind of character. You know, now we're seeing Daredevil fight these Nazi robots in Avengers, and you know, he can be just as affected as a kid with a gun. And that's what I love so much about the character. And this fantastic issue. If you haven't picked it up, obviously you can pick it up in back issues, and of course this is in all sorts of trades, you know, like Frank Miller Visionaries and stuff like that. Essential Frank Miller. Highly recommended.
Are you holding the original?
I am holding the original, and
yeah, I've got it too.
And I love it so much, and the cover is wonderful as well, because it's the one with the blurb, "How does a man search for his own soul?" Which is a nice way to kind of, you know, get that in mind when you're reading it. And it's all sketchy and scratchy, the way the cover's done. I just think it's just fantastic.
Well, today I'm going to be doing something entirely different, Manos.
Yes.
Wow, after that, I kind of wish I'd picked something really dark and broody. No, I'm kidding. Today, and by the way, that was great. That was a wonderful pick.
Thank you.
Today, I am going to be talking about something really unusual for me, and partly the reason I kind of jumped onto this is because I just recently reviewed Batman Noel. And was kind of already getting a little bit into the holiday spirit, having read that. And going back through films from 1983, I stumbled upon, for the first time in a long time, Mickey's Christmas Carol.
Oh, wow.
Which I don't usually do Disney films, but this was a big part of my childhood, and I felt like maybe it was worth talking about here. And it's significant for lots of reasons. Of course, you know, when I was growing up, I was in a household that was like really, really Christmassy. Like my mom loves Christmas, and we did lots of Christmas stuff. So there were like 3 or 4 movies, Christmas movies that we watched every year. And it seems like, you know, the ones everybody did, you know, like of course we watched Grinch every year, and we watched, the Christmas Carol we watched, most of the time was the George C. Scott version.
Oh.
Which I just love. And really, I think that was the one I watched every year until Patrick Stewart's came out. And, that's the one that I watch more often now, but I still really like the George C. Scott version. And I didn't care for the Jim Carrey one. I just couldn't get past the animation. But I tried. But I don't know. There's cool things about it because it's, you know, closer to the book than anything else ever had been. But I wish it was live action. But anyway, and so, but this was one that we watched all the time too. This is one of those things that my mom had taped off of Disney Channel, and we just watched every year. And so, of course, this came out a year before I was born. It was the first time, I didn't know this until I went back and did some research on it. This was the first time that Mickey had a new cartoon in a movie theater since 1953. which I just thought was really interesting. And there had been some re-releases, but this was the first time anybody had made any new stuff. This was a project that John Lasseter worked on.
Oh wow!
And this was one of Lasseter's earlier things. And so I thought that was kind of significant. For those of you who don't know, of course, John Lasseter is the big pioneer of Pixar. He's the reason Toy Story worked. And anyway, it was an adaptation of an audio musical from 1974 called An Adaptation of Dickens' Christmas Carol. And happily, this one was not a musical. I think that a lot of why it's so watchable is because it's really just a Mickey Mouse cartoon done in the original style and wasn't heavily modernized. I mean, yeah, this is 1983, but I mean, none of this stuff had been out for 30 years. They did it just like the older stuff. I think a common misconception that some folks have that didn't watch a lot of early Disney cartoons was that Scrooge McDuck was created for this thing, and of course he wasn't. He was around all the way back in 1947. And so it's kind of ironic that they decided to do a Mickey Christmas Carol because they had that character already lying around, because not only is he Scrooge's namesake, but I mean he's pretty much the same guy, but he's a duck. It's about it. And so it's kind of funny they just had that character.
How bad would it have been if they had missed that opportunity?
Don't you think?
What if they made Goofy or somebody or Donald the character? I mean,
the thing this really had going for it is the same thing that a lot of adaptations of of A Christmas Carol that other familiar things do, and that's who is chosen for what. Muppet Christmas Carol did a really good job with that. This did too. Having Mickey Mouse be Bob Cratchit is the obvious thing to do. Of course, they had Kermit be Bob Cratchit in the Muppets version, but they did some other things that weren't so extremely obvious. But then once you see it, you're like, yeah, that's the way to go. Jiminy Cricket as the Ghost of Christmas Past. That's so obvious. I love that. It's just a really cool idea. And then the Ghost of Christmas Future is Pete. And the thing with the Ghost of Christmas Future was always, when he takes his robe off, he's the scariest thing you can imagine. And that was, and I mean, in the Mickey Mouse cartoons, Pete was the big scary guy. So when he takes that robe off, I mean, it's almost funny. Except that it's animated in such a way where if you're a kid it's kind of creepy looking, but I mean of course the Ghost of Christmas Future is going to be Pete. Who else is it going to be when you're doing Disney? And then they probably the place where they made it the most jokey was having Goofy be the ghost of Jacob Marley, but it's hilarious because it's Goofy. And he's got all these chains all over him, so of course he's tripping all over himself. And they could not resist the temptation to have him drop down a flight of stairs and do the yell thing he always does. So I don't know. It's a really fun, solid piece. I would make the case that the only real problem with it is that it probably would have been better as a longer as a regular full length movie, or at least like a regular fully animated movie, like 70-75 minutes, because they have to cut a lot out of the story to fit it into the half an hour that it is, and I think that's a little bit disappointing because what's there is so good it feels kind of rushed. And I remember as a kid even thinking that it was kind of rushed, having seen other versions of A Christmas Carol and go, wait, that part's missing and that part's missing. And they also toned down certain things for kids, which I don't think they had to do. Like they don't have the scene where Scrooge says he wants to decrease the surplus population. I missed that, because that was always my favorite line from A Christmas Carol, and they really toned down, well, because that says a lot about him, and to have that missing, I feel like it's a little bit disappointing. They still have the scene where he talks to the people who are collecting for the poor, but it's just again like some of the other things in it, it's really rushed. But I mean it's that really, really pretty, traditional Walt Disney animation. And I don't know if you've never seen it, because it's not widely available anymore. Somebody actually has uploaded it on YouTube in HD, and it's a really good transfer. It's in like 3 parts. and it's in HD, so like you can go watch it. And I don't know, I still really really like it. So that's anyway, that's all I have to say about that.
Now, this was shown in theaters, right?
Yeah.
Let's see, was it shown as a double bill with something else?
It would have had to have been, right? Because I mean, it was only half an hour, and in fact, when it was on TV, it was always shown as a double bill with something else, or at least a lot of the time. Like they put some other cartoons with it or something, so they could beef it to an hour.
I'm trying to remember. I remember it being advertised on TV, and I'm trying to remember what it was shown with. Maybe, oh, jeez, maybe it was that Oliver thing with the dogs or something like that.
I don't think that was 83. I think it was a year or two after that.
Well, I'm pretty sure it was probably shown. I'm trying to think. What was? I have no idea.
I have no idea. Honestly, I tried to figure that out and I couldn't find it. I researched it a little bit, but I'm not sure there was any other big Disney stuff that came out that year. If anybody knows, leave a comment. But I couldn't find it.
Or maybe it was with a re-release. You know how Disney used to re-release their films all the time.
That's true. That may be how they did it.
I mean, before
that would have made it a lot longer because this wasn't just like a 10-minute cartoon. I mean, it was a full half hour.
Yeah, there's no way anybody would show up for a half-hour film in theaters and just go home.
No, surely not.
Because before the advent of DVD and before that, of course, before video became really big, Disney for decades was like, I think every year, every couple of years, re-releasing their big guns and stuff like that. Their animated features, for years.
Yeah, I didn't realize they did it that often.
Oh, yeah. Oh, they would do it all the time. Oh, yeah, like during the 70s, they re-released, Peter Pan and Snow White and, all the time. And then they would go back into the Disney vault. And what they're doing on video is actually not that different from what they used to do in theaters.
Yeah, that's it. And, of course, people dog them for that all the time.
Yeah, but I don't know. I don't always have too much of a problem with it because that's how you kind of keep the mystery and people excited about it. And I understand why
let future generations see the stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I can understand why they want to keep a tight leash on it. But that's their style.
Manos, did you see this?
No, I've never seen it.
You've never seen it? Wow. Okay.
No, I'm seen Christmas Carol 8 billion times.
Oh yeah, fair enough.
Other versions. So I can actually kind of imagine.
Yeah, well, yeah, and that's fair. I'm just saying that this was one of the things that introduced me to Christmas Carol when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm. I saw as a kid on HBO. I think they aired this a couple of years in a row. The Rich Little Christmas Carol, which
I've never seen that.
Which was an hour-long special featuring comedian and impressionist Rich Little, who was much more popular in the 70s than he was now. and where he'd be playing all the parts. And he'd be doing them as different kind of famous people. Like he was playing Scrooge as W.C. Fields.
Weird.
And he would do I can't remember the parts he would play. I only remember he had the Ghost of Christmas Future, and his version of that was Inspector Clouseau.
That's so bizarre. Was it good?
At the time, I liked it.
Not so much? Okay.
I'm very sure if I went back and watched it as an adult, I would be horrified of how bad it is. But, I mean, every year there's some kind of new version of Christmas Carol done by...
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's way overdone, and I completely realize that, but I don't know. It doesn't change the fact that I liked this a lot when I was a kid.
Yeah, no,
I think it still kind of holds up.
Don't let me take that. This is probably one of the better ones. I am curious about who's going to do Christmas Carol this year and what's it going to be like.
I don't think they do it every year.
It feels like every year.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, Manos, let's jump back in our time machine and head back to the present, shall we?
Done.
Let's get out of that recession and come back to our recession.
Yeah, boy, nothing's changed.
Right. Well, I did for a while, and now it's just right back to where it was.
All right. So, what year should we do next year?
Well, Manos, next year we're gonna go way back.
Yeah.
We're gonna go way back to the year 2007.
Oh, I'll have to explain everything.
Yeah,
Just to
yeah.
see.
Nobody listening will have any idea what we're talking about. We'll have to put it all back into perspective for them.
See, back in 2007, Superman and Lois were married.
Yeah. So we're going to go back to 2007 next time. And in the meantime, thanks a whole lot for listening to the Pop Culture Yearbook. We'll be back with you hopefully in a couple weeks. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm the real Manos.
See you next time.